All right, we are live here, May Day, 2026. Just got done watching a video. Alex Jones's InfoWars just got shut down. Not that it means he's going away, but he's been fighting this fake fight against big government censorship or big media censorship for a long time. The New World Order has given him a huge platform with all this performative censorship. And it's performative because the truly censored aren't ever really seen. Our viewpoints are not really censored here. We're excluded from the conversation entirely, which is far different from being censored, because to censor you, they have to acknowledge you. And we are the unacknowledged. And that's because our perspective is inclusive of a lot of things that the programmers would rather not have people know. For example, the significance of psychological operations and media fakery and how systemic it actually is. I just uploaded another video. I'm going to make it go live here shortly. And it's a infographic breakdown on a whiteboard of the off-world stage perspective, which is something that needs to be understood so people know where we are coming from when we make the claims we do or say something is fake. Because when you say something is fake or staged, you have to qualify it, because there are many people who are complete normies, who are immersed in mainstream or alternative media, who will point out things like the White House Correspondents' Dinner as being staged. But their point of view nullifies the meaning of that fact. So they're looking at these little details at singular events, but not putting it into the right context. Well, we have the right context. And it's one of these things that I believe once you understand it, once you can see it, you are unable to fall back into the old pattern, which is built upon the presupposition of media objectivity to a large degree. The idea that the media is recording stuff and reporting it is built into how most people process it, as opposed to our understanding of it. Media is a liar. And strategically, not with every single story, but strategically, and to those who trust it, it will proactively create events. It will lie. So a psyop is an event that the media produces. They're not just being fooled. So that's why I don't use the word hoax. You say hoax, it makes it sound as though it's a small group or a localized operation that's tricking media. And I'm saying that couldn't be further from the truth. These are not hoaxes. These are staged historic events that become permanent fixtures in our collective worldview. If you look at the history books, they will reflect the mainstream version of events every single time. Our perspective doesn't matter. What's up, Duet Celeste, Armin Ree, Multi C0, hi from Egypt. I want to say special thanks to all those who joined Patreon. Links at ips.monster. And thank you for the generous support, Diana Southard and others. And I know someone ordered a bunch of books. By the way, I have 3 copies in-house right now. Signed copies, Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed, A Skeptic's Guide to the Theater of Psywar. It's just above 300 so pages of ideas and perspectives, and contains a model to interpret media. You know, the whole idea of the world stage and the off-world stage is fundamental here. The world stage is consensus-driven, illusion. The off-world stage is an external viewpoint for deconstructing it without accepting new dogmas. Again, 3 copies in-house. You can also find it on Amazon. And I'm going to make it available as an ebook and an audiobook this weekend. Tomorrow, we will have the capacity to go back into the open phones, late night live streams. Tomorrow night will be the first night that I have Starlink. So as soon as the Starlink is up, we're going live. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to go through a few things here. So Erica Kirk comes out to confront those who have been attacking her online for many months. She specifically addresses Candace Owens for saying that she killed Charlie. Now, that narrative of the widow killing the leader and taking over, that's the story in The Tempest. And do you remember it was Stephen Miller, he called Erica Kirk the Storm at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. Well, in The Tempest, which came out on the day of the assassination, the leader of the Youth Republicans is shot in the neck, he's killed, his widow takes over. And then later, she's accused of faking her grief and having orchestrated the assassination. So the entire story of Erica Kirk, as we've experienced it over the last 7 months, is contained in the first few episodes of Hulu's The Tempest, which came out on the day of the assassination. Just another example of predictive programming. What's up, Barry? Thanks for joining. I try to send out a notification on Substack, but the internet here is so slow that it's not actually processing the video I uploaded. So give it time. It's a problem that expires today, so it's no longer an issue. Now, I'm bringing up Erica Kirk because she's addressing all of her critics, but she's dressed up in this like SWAT uniform, a black BDU cap, black shirt. And someone in Discord pointed out she looks like Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat, which I don't disagree with. But the comparison that I saw floating around on X is this one. She looks like Sarah Connor from Judgment Day. Now, Judgment Day got me thinking, because the timing of it, because Terminator 2 Judgment Day is going to be released in the theaters in a couple of weeks. James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day returns to theaters for 35th anniversary. I guess they missed the 33rd. Yeah, T2 Judgment Day returning to the big screen. The 8-week limited engagement kicks off on May 22nd. So a couple of things about that. One, James Cameron, Metascriptor, 9/11 predictive programming. And then there's this, the weird, tragic link between Terminator 2 and the Rodney King incident. You won't believe this crazy and bizarre. So it's not an eerie coincidence. This one's crazy and bizarre. Between the 1991 blockbuster T2 and the infamous Rodney King incident. So if you're not familiar with this, and James Cameron talked about this in an interview, it's how I found out about it, and it fits a broader pattern of these metascriptors who contribute PSYOP reinforcement content in their movies to direct involvement in on-the-ground PSYOPs. So in the Terminator 2 movie, there's a scene where the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is at a bar where he steals the biker's clothing. It's like, I'll need your jacket, your bike, and I'll need your pants, your jacket, and your motorcycle, and then he drives off. Well, that scene was being filmed from the sidelines while James Cameron was filming the movie. A guy named George Holliday had a handycam, and he was recording the scene from the side as a spectator. On the way home, this spectator sees a bunch of cops beating Rodney King. Now, the tie-in here is that Terminator 2 took the idea of the cop as a good guy and made him into a villain. So that's a pretty significant shift to suddenly villainize the police. See, the villain cop in the movie being filmed by a guy from the side who then records real-life villain cops. So on the same footage that has the Terminator scene, it has the Rodney King. So the tape that incited the LA riots began at Terminator 2. And there's just that thematic continuity. And I think it's a hint. Sort of like it's a hint that James Cameron has like 9/11 predictive programming in T2, and even more dramatically in the Titanic, where it splits in two, you got jumpers, very 9/11-y. So that's already encoded into his work. And then on September 11, 2001, James Cameron was at the scene of the sunken Titanic, which in the movie represented or foreshadowed the sinking towers. So he's at the wrecked Titanic filming a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss. in the deep sea submersible called the Challenger, which also has some interesting connotations we could go into. I've mapped this stuff out ad nauseum. There's even some strong connections between Collateral Damage, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Ground Zero that are worth looking into. But I'm focusing right now on Erica Kirk and Judgment Day because, again, 35th anniversary, Judgment Day. Why is it coming out right now? Erica Kirk looking like Sarah O'Connor. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm pointing out the significance of Cameron as a metascriptor. And now listen to this. The nuclear sequence in Terminator 2 Judgment Day was praised by nuclear scientists for its realistic depiction of a nuclear detonation. Director James Cameron researched weapon effects to create the scene. Scientific accuracy. It's noted for its realistic representation of a nuclear flash, blast, wave, thermal radiation. And scientists sent letters to the film crew praising its accuracy. It was created by Four Winds Productions, who built miniatures of Los Angeles, including buildings, cars, and freeways. To simulate the destruction, the crew used giant air blowers to destroy the miniature structures and painted cereal to simulate flying debris. So we have a movie with the most realistic, scientifically accurate depiction of a nuclear detonation, and I think it's in Los Angeles, but in a coastal city, happening to be presented to us right now. In context, with all of the Fallout stuff and the nuke stuff, it makes sense it would be out right now, but I think there's some deeper significance here as well. I did a review of Avatar 2. I still need to watch 3. I think it's Fire and Ash. But Avatar 2 had a fascinating correlation between the movie and how it predicted, in a predictive programming fashion, the Cop City riots in Atlanta. I've done some thorough breakdowns of that. I may return to it. Joe from Connecticut says, hard to believe it's been 35 years. Yeah, no kidding. Well, James Cameron is one of the top metascriptors, and we'll continue to look at his work. And for me to call someone a metascriptor, what I'm implying here is that they are consciously participating in the construction of fake news cycles. They're part of the PSYOP entertainment complex, and their work is effectively being whored out to the PSYOP entertainment complex. What's up, anti-flurf troll? I haven't managed to make a live for a while. Hope all is well. Yeah, everything's going great. In fact, it's gonna get better when I have the Starlink set up tomorrow. We're gonna start doing the 800 number call-in shows again. So going back to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there was an individual there, a mentalist, a magician, named Oz Perlman. Now, it stood out to me because Trump, if you look at the subtext in The Wizard of Oz, he's the Wizard of Oz. So we have a magician, a mentalist, a wizard named Oz, and he's center stage when the White House Correspondents' Dinner started happening, shooting started happening. You see him here pictured between, I believe it's Trump, Melania, and Erica holding some kind of a cue card, like it's PSYOP time. But I'm just saying, what's with this Wizard of Oz reference? And someone else recently messaged me about how the Wizard of Oz brags about how people believe all kinds of things that aren't true. It's called history, where in the movie, the Wizard of Oz admits that he controls history itself, that he's brainwashed his captive population. Again, if you haven't seen it, Wizard of Oz Part 1 and 2, it's basically the witch represents Antifa and Trump is the Wizard of Oz. It's that simple. Targeting a left-wing audience, containing copious predictive programming for the Minneapolis riots, because the Wizard of Oz decides to deport the talking animals. So the deportation is protested by the Wicked Witch, and she has to collaborate with the Good Witch, who has the privilege and the power of the position to subvert the wizard. So it's sort of like how Renee Good and Alex Pretty had to step down from their privileged lives and their status in this system to defend the oppressed. symbolized in the movie by the talking animals. The second part of the Wicked series is called For Good. And I say it's for Renee Good, because that's sort of built into it. There's a strong tie-in. And by the way, the first one ends with the Wicked Witch launching an EMP at the Emerald City, causing a blackout. And EMP, of course, nuke. And Seattle is the Emerald City. What's up, Lean Dion? King Ravana says, Erica Kirk, a.k.a. Cynthia Rothrock, American Tigers. Please elaborate. Okay, let's go through my Twitter feed next. Wait, there's some more stuff here in my Discord. Armin Ra posted this. One of the key historical figures that proposed globe Earth, his name translates to English as Holywood. Interesting, John of Holywood. A scholar, Catholic monk, and astronomer who taught at the University of Paris. And by the way, a lot of the Erica Kirk videos that are showing up are fake. And Grok can no longer tell the difference between real and fake. Grok is looking at AI-enhanced videos and treating it as real. So we've passed the point of no return. We live in hyper-reality. And when I say we, I mean the masses. Unless you have the off-world stage perspective, unless you actually stepped outside of their bubble, you are pretty much in a hyper reality, which is to say that you're in a consensus that can no longer distinguish between real and fake and requires a higher authority to judge this for them. It's insanity. Baron Trump is not a time traveler. I believe in, Laura Trump addressed this. Baron's not a time traveler. I saw him grow up. If you believe in conspiracies like this, you probably also think we didn't land on the moon or that 9/11 is an inside job. So 9/11 is an inside job is a worldview, it's a perspective on the event that doesn't disrupt the world stage. So it's an acceptable conspiracy theory. All of the popular conspiracy theories are acceptable if they're talked about. And the inside job one is acceptable because they're saying it happened, but someone else did it. It happened, but they knew it was coming. We're saying it didn't happen. We're saying 9/11 wasn't a job. It was a movie. So yesterday we talked about Peter J. Carroll, and I uploaded the archive. If you're on Patreon or Spotify, the subject, the title is Chaos Magic. So we talk a lot about sigils and subconscious manipulation, loosh extraction and such. A lot of that stuff has an explanation if you look at the chaos magic theories or this model of the universe that is inclusive of some effect that human will has on the outcome of events. Very intriguing stuff. One of the main thinkers and proponents of this just died a few days ago. And I think we're up to 20-something dead scientists connected to UFOs. And someone pointed out that when Reagan introduced Star Wars, there were similarly a lot of unexplained deaths of scientists connected to this idea that we're going to go to war with aliens. All right, let me go through my Twitter feed because there's quite a lot there. Duet Celeste says, I thought Erica looked like a communist activist in that outfit. Well, we've already seen Erica with a sniper rifle in November Renaissance. That was a film from like 2012. She has an interesting background and a conspicuous number of individuals named Tyler in her background. She's dated a lot of Tylers. So it's kind of ironic and strange that there's two Tylers really close to Charlie Kirk at the end, the one who shot him, and the one who worked at TPUSA who was embezzling a bunch of money. Now, okay, so Erica Kirk's performance, what I think they did is so I watched the 15-minute video. I didn't detect any anomalies, no weird breathing into the mic or any of that weird hypnotic staring. I think what they have done is they've taken clips from that and they use AI to make it look weirder and they release it. It's that bad. So people are reacting to a version of her that doesn't really exist. It's so convoluted. All right, let's go ahead and get into my Twitter feed. Talk show host Jimmy Kimmel opens up with a rare monologue on UFOs. He had Goldie Hawn on the show talking about UFOs as well. Again, I've said this like a month ago or 2 months ago, that the movie screen is the Overton window. And when they put something on the movie screen, it's now in the realm of possibility from a world stage or perspective. So the instant Steven Spielberg released a trailer for Age of Disclosure, which is really on the tail end of a number of very popular UFO movies, like Third Body Problem, or Three Body Problem, where the scientists are disappearing, or Pluribus. This gets announced, and all of a sudden the talk is all about disclosure. I guess Epstein got boring. So now everybody's talking about alien disclosure as though it's about to happen or as though it's true. And then many of the popular voices and very well-known ufologists start suddenly dying. So what is that? Well, it seems to me it's concurrent programming. It's part of the same show. So one of the things I mentioned in my video I'm uploading today, the whiteboard, is that there is a collusion that needs to be acknowledged between government, news media, and entertainment. It's an ongoing collusion. It's the source of what I term here systemic fakery. It's how they manufacture our history. Government, news media, and entertainment. That's the PSYOP entertainment complex, what it manufactures. So for example, the Artemis launch was perfectly coordinated with Easter and with the PSYOP, the Artemis 2 mission. So the mission, the movie, the pagan holiday, these things were all intertwined as part of the same event. By the way, Candace Owens is getting sued by someone else now. There's a lot of lawsuits heading her way, but it's important to note that Candace Owens is playing a role, as is Erica Kirk. Behind the scenes, they're all high fives and hugs, and they're buddies. This is all theatrical. It's a psyopera. It's soap opera. Anti-Fleur Patrol says, what's your take on UAPs, alien tech, secret tech, creatures from the lights in the sky from beyond the limits of the South? Well, when it comes to the UFO stuff, I think we're looking at a government disinformation campaign where they've manufactured a science fiction version of aliens, just like they've replaced the archaic concept of heaven with space, how they've replaced the flood myths with climate change. Sin is now like the virus. Like every aspect of the old religion has been syncretically blended with science fiction. You'll notice that the religious people who've been waiting for a second coming have been waiting for a long time. It never happens. Their angels never show up. Well, it's the same with the alien thing. It's a new version of the rapture or revelation where the believers are rewarded. Like we want to believe they have the signs because they believe they're going to be treated better, perhaps even elevated above the non-believers. So ufology is government manufactured religion, because our new global paradigm has to contain all the old religions and then put them into a unified, agreed upon worldview. And they've accomplished it through science fiction. When it comes to any of these things, we have to start with, is there evidence? And I brought up my maybe Bigfoot logic the other day. So maybe Bigfoot logic is when you're camping with some friends and you hear some noises outside. And you raise the question, well, was that a deer? Was it another camper? Or was it Bigfoot? Well, the person who believes in Bigfoot is going to say, I think it was Bigfoot. And they might even tell their friends, I think I heard Bigfoot. Maybe it's Bigfoot, maybe not, but maybe it was. And I'm saying that that's kind of fallacious, that you can't even insert Bigfoot into the list of options until you've demonstrated that it exists. Until you can demonstrate that Bigfoot actually exists, you have no reason putting him into your multiple choice set of options. So now when it comes to lights in the sky, there's no reason to assert UFOs. There's no reason to assert any superstition that hasn't been already demonstrated to not be a superstition. So I'm saying that aliens are a superstition. Angels, as depicted, are largely superstitious. That's the proper category for them. And if we're working on separating the subjective from the objective, the world stage from the real world, delineating between real and fake, we have to begin with the presumption that these things are fake until proven real. Yeah, anti-flurf troll, it also reinforces the global model, creatures coming from the sky in a heliocentric universe. Yeah, that's another aspect of it as well. It does conform to the worldview that we've been given. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't or there weren't. I really am saying I'm agnostic about it for the most part. And when you look into the actual facts of the matter, most of the UFO mythology, abductions, underground bases with hybrids in Dulce, New Mexico, a lot of that stuff came from special agents at the Air Force Base here, Kirtland, where they were monitoring conspiracy theorists online talking about craft they were seeing at the Air Force Base, stuff that might have been classified. So to shut them up, since we have free speech, the Air Force sent special agents into the lives of the conspiracy theorists to feed them a bunch of disinformation. So now they're no longer credible witnesses. And then moreover, they got the guy to set up conferences so they could honeypot all of the people who were into this stuff at these hotels. They would go through and get their numbers, their names. So it was a big sting. There's a movie about it called Mirage Men. It's a documentary. And Mirage Men is about how ufology is a government-created mythology designed to discredit witnesses to advanced tech. So there could be, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there were advanced craft that would necessarily be secret, classified, out of the purview of the public. I mean, if you've been in the military, you know about security clearances. I was part of air defense and I had no knowledge of what they were doing. I was in my compartment. I wasn't allowed in certain areas, nor was I allowed to know the capacity of the surface to air missile, their ranges, their abilities. That was all classified. I didn't have the security clearance. So the idea that there are highly advanced craft or weapons is not really outside the realm of possibility. It's not an extraordinary claim. But the idea of UFOs, aliens rather, introduces the supernatural. So I don't think appealing to the supernatural to explain gaps in our knowledge is the right way to go. It falls under the divine fallacy, where I don't know how it works, or that's unexplained, so it must come from something higher than man, or it must be coming from something mystical. Now, when they let aliens into the popular discourse a few months ago, they opened the portal, the aliens came through. The aliens were followed by demons. And at first, we were just making fun of Tucker Carlson, who said that he was in bed with demons that scratched up his back and left blood on the sheets. But then others started echoing this. And now the discourse is firmly divided down the middle, as I pointed out it would be a couple of years ago when I said that this whole issue is another psyop because it's perfectly split down the middle, where the progressive-minded, atheistic, the scientifically grounded will say aliens are likely benevolent versions of us, advanced, that it's a plausible thing to believe. It's even a scientific belief, which it's not. It's a superstition dressed with science fiction. But then the other side, the traditionalist view, and the conspiracy theorists have been conditioned for this for many decades, will be skeptical of it. They will say those are fake aliens, the government's doing it. But moreover, the traditionalist view still believes in angels. So they believe that the aliens are going to be demons, that they're going to be falsely presenting themselves as saviors. So you have the demons or aliens dialectic built into this, and it ties into the progressive versus traditional view. Anti-Flurf says the whole Roswell conspiracy was to hide a downed Satelloon and make people think it was alien tech. You know where it landed? Because I went out there during the lockdown when they gave us a STEMI check. I was like, let me take a vacation. I drove to Roswell, and I wanted to see where the craft was found. And it's a place called Corona Field. And at the time, we were talking about the predictive programming for aliens and how in many movies, there's also a theme of the alien being some type of a virus. In fact, in August of 2020, you had a movie come out of Russia called Sputnik about the cosmonauts coming down to Earth infected with aliens that live in the esophagus, and they come out at night when they terrorize their victims because they feed off the cortisol, the stress, and then they eat them, and then it goes back into this person's body. It's a symbiotic relationship. And in the movie, they reveal that the aliens have been making deals with governments for a long time for tech in exchange for feeding them people, expendables, prisoners. Very bizarre movie. Again, came out August 2020, Sputnik, the same month that Putin released Sputnik 5, which was the first COVID vax. And I think Sputnik went into space on 11/3/57. Didn't that kick off the space age? So the correlation here is that we were noticing a lot of inner space, outer space connections. Like the astronauts were in the space station getting vaxxed. It was called celestial immunity. And at the same time that they were getting vaxxed, a piece of space junk punctured the arm of the space station. I'm like, okay. The arm got a hole in it. There's some kind of overlap here that we were noticing. Like oftentimes you see the commons overlap, like outer space, low Earth orbit is a commons. Cyberspace is a commons. Well, who's the biggest polluter? Who's the biggest threat to cyberspace and outer space or low Earth orbit? Well, Elon Musk, leading purveyor of space junk, which is what damaged the space station. Leading purveyor of mind junk, which is ruining the internet. And this is all to illustrate that we cannot allow billionaires to have unfettered power and ability to disrupt entire systems. Again, Musk is just a character on the world stage. Even before he was born, I believe, he was in a book called Mars, A Technical Tale by Wernher von Braun. And if you look at Musk's persona, you can see a great deal of von Braun built into it, especially when he's talking about space. But now Grok has some fascinating connections to this whole story as well. We're getting into AI and his Musk's constant referencing the number 42, which refers to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And at the center of the galaxy is Deep Thought, this supercomputer that has the answer to everything. So we're getting somewhere with all this stuff, especially with these characters, Musk and Trump and others. When you understand that these are constructs, they're actors, and you see the basis for them, pre-existing them in predictive programming, you can kind of see them fulfilling these almost prophesized roles. That's why I mentioned The Tempest, where you can watch the first few episodes of The Tempest and you can see Erica Kirk projected into this movie, just basically predicting her entire character arc and how the public would reject her in some areas, how she'd be accused of being a part of the assassination and the takeover of the youth Republicans. It's all there. So for those who say these are coincidences, you're running out of room to maintain that stance. In fact, you've already lost it. You just haven't noticed. But we're here at the IPS think tank, we're accumulating all of the evidence in support of this world stage model and the collusion between entertainment and government and news media to construct these psyops. Yeah, if you like the hat, Jamarian May says digging the IPS auto hoax chic. Go to ips.monster, and I have a few other versions of it. Duet Celeste says the link between Musk and von Braun explains Musk doing the Roman salute. Yeah. You know what's weird about that one? So here's Musk doing the Nazi salute, and the ADL comes out and they says, oh, it's because he's got autism. It wasn't a Nazi thing. Are you telling me the guy that mainstreamed neo-Nazis on the internet, brought him out of 4chan, platformed him on X, who echoes all their talking points, such as white genocide, replacement theory. He goes deep into woke right. So he says, I'm getting rid of the woke mind virus. He purges woke left from X. But then he brings in the woke right. So he's basically in the Hitler fan club as deep as you can be. But he did that because he's autistic. And so I'm trying to remember any other time where someone autistic ran around doing a Hitler salute. I can't remember. I haven't seen it. But why would the ADL get in front of that and defend him? I don't know. The whole thing is just bonkers. The whole world stage, bread and circuses, it's completely incoherent at times. Yes, Jamarian says, it's all one giant soap opera. Well, Werner von Braun was a Nazi. You know, that's not a disputed fact. He was friends with Walt Disney. So what's the connection there? Disney, NASA, there's some kind of connection. All right, let's move on here. But yeah, Musk is a Frankenstein monster amalgamation of Werner von Braun. I would even say Gene Wilder, like from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There's a great deal of Tony Stark built into his character. And then Nick Bostrom, the guy who came up with the bogus idea that simulationism is a theory, he copies his cadence when he talks about, I mean, the guy's an actor, if you ask me. And he has these various aspects to his persona that he incorporates. And von Braun supposedly told his assistant when he was on his deathbed that we're going to be hit with a series of fake events, terror attacks, asteroids, and then aliens. Do you remember that conversation? She talks about that don't fall for the aliens. So ever since the alien invasion has been posited as something the government's going to do, Project Bluebeam, the conspiracy theorists have always been primed to reject it. And I've heard, like Reagan said, when the aliens arrive, we're all going to be one. We're all one humanity. We're going to unite. That's not going to happen. It's going to be split like every other psyop. One half will embrace the alien. The other half will reject it. And this tracks perfectly with the bifurcation on the subject of immigration, where the xenophobic right, who don't like illegal aliens, already don't like extraterrestrial aliens. They call them demons. Whereas the left is open borders, no borders, everybody's welcome, we're all the same. They don't make a distinction. And they're also the ones who are embracing the extraterrestrials, who are, again, demonized by the right, said to eat pets, etc. All right, let's see here. Blank Check says, 1996 film Independence Day as 9/11 predicted programming. David Levinson discovers a countdown to an attack on America and the world. He checks to see how much time they have left. It's 9 minutes and 11 seconds. What are the odds? So ID for Independence Day, that's a Roland Emmerich. And we'll get into him in a second, another metascriptor. But what's interesting about Independence Day in particular is that when people watched the footage of 9/11, they compared it to Independence Day. So when I talk about predictive programming being a form of advertisement for future psyops at product placement, that's what I mean. They're already creating the associations: 9/11, falling buildings, alien threat. Now, Roland Emmerich did a more recent movie called Moonfall, in which the moon is a hollow object, like an ark full of advanced tech that has been placed there at some time in our past, and it's about to fall on the earth. I did a breakdown of that movie. It had a couple elements worth mentioning. Namely, the main character was a scientist who became a sacrificial martyr. And he happened to be 33, the actor. But he's a martyr who sacrifices his life to save the world. That's a reoccurring theme with many of these space movies, like even Project Hail Mary. Ryan Gosling's character essentially dies to save the world. And if you haven't seen it, he has a bunch of hybrid human alien spider babies at the end. Spoiler. Let's see here. InfoWars dies at 27. Part of the 27 Club, like Hendrix, Cobain, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Amy Winehouse, Robert Johnson. Now, InfoWars is dead in name only. Now it's just going to be Alex Jones. It's not like it's going away. It's performative censorship. It's to build the idea that he's against the establishment, not that he is the establishment. And people still haven't figured this out. If you're still drinking Kool-Aid in Alex Jonestown, you are part of the establishment. They accounted for you. All right, let's see here. I'm going through my Twitter feed. If you want to follow me there, it's Real Tim Osman. Auto Hoaxer Axiom 101. Conspiracy theories are metascript subplots. So the conspiracy theories, and when I say all, that's not an extreme statement. If you're willing to say that all mainstream news is compromised by psyops, compromised, it's all done. It all rests upon the wrongful presupposition that previous events were real. You can understand that we can speak in generalities when we're talking about the world stage. So similarly, we can say that all conspiracy theories, because they're all part of the world stage infrastructure, that they are all metascript subplots. So the metascript is the series of fake events over the many decades and into the future, presumably, those pre-scripted news cycles that all exist on one script. Okay, continuing. Again, if you didn't hear us earlier, May 22nd, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Again, the significance to me of the Judgment Day coming back out is that James Cameron's already connected to 9/11 as a metascripter. And he did release this movie that has what has been recognized by scientists as the most realistic depiction of a nuke dropped on a city. And he, like Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, are part of this incoming psyop for when they nuke us. And it's a when, not an if. The question is it going to be high altitude EMP, underwater, radioactive tsunami, or is it going to be something else? Is it going to be like Oppenheimer? Is it going to be somewhere where it's going to be populated? How are they going to pull it off? Interesting questions. Laura Loomer says that we're going to have a 9/11 event that's 10 times bigger. And I expect she knows something because she's an insider and they love to drop hints so they can sound like they're prophets. Even Alex Jones is credited with having, quote, predicted 9/11. Well, he didn't. I mean, he knew something was happening, but he didn't predict an oncoming psyop. He predicted that this fake event would be real and it would happen. I mean, you have to remember that the point of view invalidates their perspectives. Lean Dion says, AJ now has an Alex Jones network like Tucker. Right, this is how they control the opposition. Tucker's up there and he takes a fall because he goes against the establishment. Now he's a hero of the people. These are manufactured heroes. Candace Owens, high up in Daily Wire, but then she speaks out against Israel. Now she's street level. She's one of us. Alex Jones getting cast down. It creates the illusion you can trust them. This is how they put their Judas goats out there to lead the sheep. This is their controlled opposition tactic. Yes, Jamarian says, have you seen the Netflix movie Spaceman 2024, Weird Giant Spider? Yeah, I was bringing this up because Spider-Man, I'm sorry, well, Spider-Man was actually in the trailer for Project Hail Mary when I went to go see it. And then I was reminded of the fact that Spaceman with Adam Sandler is about this spider-like alien, and they're hugging. It's got 8 legs wrapped around him. So you can find the scene of them hugging. One of the recurring themes in this movie with Ryan Gosling was the affection he had for the spider and how they're hugging. And when he asked the spider about the spider's mate, he says, what is their name? Meaning he was being sensitive to gender pronouns when talking to the alien, which is consistent with the movie aimed at the political left. But it also speaks to something else here, which is the leftist view of aliens, inclusivity, globalism, the one world stuff, and also you could say transhumanism, because it's implied that he and the spider alien are lovers. So the hugging the spider thing is pretty big. Spider-Man has the theme of the spider merging with the man. I don't know what this all means, but I'm pointing it out that what's with the spider aliens and the hugging in particular being a recurring theme? Again, I don't have an answer. Project Hail Mary also implies, and even the whole football pass, but the movie's about a man sent the furthest distance that man has ever gone from the earth. Well, what happened during Artemis? They sent man as far as they've ever been from the earth. And by the way, Artemis is the name of the mission to fake the moon landing and fly me to the moon with Scarlett Johansson. But when I see these patterns, I call them out. In the movie Project Hail Mary, he's got a red spacesuit and this cord as he's dangling in space like a spider. And I thought, wow, he's like Spider-Man with the red. I can't say what it all means, but we're being bombarded all the time with archetypes and symbols, and it's worth noting. And again, the 2 missions, the furthest distance man has ever gone. And then you can throw in Hail Mary, as in the prayer, Hail Mary, full of grace. The spaceship was called Grace on Easter. So you have the religious element. And then Mary's called the Queen of Heaven. And space and heaven are strongly, correlated. Symbolically, it's the same thing. The space, the savior from space. Also Easter, the dying of the sun god, the resurrection of the sun. Project Hail Mary is about the sun dying. In the book, which is by the same guy, Andy Weir, who wrote the Mars Project, I think it's just called Project Mars, or is it just Mars? In the book, they nuke Antarctica. It's like, nuke the North Pole, leave the penguins alone. But they nuke Antarctica to accelerate global warming because the dying sun is causing the earth to cool. There's a link in the chat if you want to follow me on Spotify. Lane Dion says spiders and bees in focus. Yeah, Trump holding the bee. Melania Trump with their little White House made into a beehive. What's with the bees? And then you had the bees in that movie, which was the one with, I think, Emma Stone, about the conspiracy theorists. And the guy's got these beehives. And it's about the hive mind, sort of like with Pluribus. There's a lot of bees and a lot of hive mind stuff. Does anybody recall what that movie was called? I recommend it because at the end they have a funny flat earth reference. Begonia. If you haven't seen Begonia, I recommend it because it's a stab at conspiracy theorists, but it also at the end has this kind of funny domed flat earth reference, which you have to see. Sink Lloyd says spiders are a nod to insiders. Don't tell it's not fake. We're everywhere. Right. The idea of weaving webs, like Walter Scott, what a tangled web we weave. when we set out to deceive, weaving spiders, come not here, Bohemian Grove. The spider references are intriguing. And there are many spider deities, spider gods, even this Egyptian deity. You can find a lot. Listen to this. Thomas Crooks, BlackRock commercial. Ryan Routh, Associated Press B-roll. Cole Ellen, ABC News sequence. This is something that, to me, is a dead giveaway that you're dealing with actors, not patsies. And the last time we saw Ryan Routh, he was stabbing himself in the neck with a pencil in the exact spot where Charlie Kirk got shot. A Newful says, Tim Osmond, you're a famous part of the show. They created a character in the comic The Boys inspired by you. His name is James Stillwell, and Homelander respects to him. I'll have to check it out. The Homelander is based on Trump. We talked about this quite a lot last year, and how when we were observing Butler, because there are people today, like big channels, just like patting themselves on the back for the bravery to say Butler was possibly, maybe, could be fake. It's like you're 2 years too late. We were calling Butler fake before it happened. And the Homelander predicted it, as many other movies did. In fact, The Boys had predictive programming for it, as did Jonathan Nolan's Fallout. In Fallout, there was an episode that came out that April we were talking about. Maybe it came out before, but I talked about it in April, where Vault 33 gets wiped out. There's a massacre. There's a stolen election storyline. And there's this foosball character that looks just like Donald Trump, and it's got a spot of blood on the right side of its head. And I remember looking at that, and I screen capped it because there was only one frame. But I mean, I noticed it. And so I had this one frame, and I put it in the context of the story, and it all points to Donald Trump head wound, right side of the head. Again, that was months before Butler. So if you're looking at The Boys for predictive programming, it might be worth looking at Gen 5. And I've only just watched a couple episodes. I need to binge. But season 2, episode 4 has a scene where they send a goat. They levitate a goat with their mental powers, and then another psychic comes in and blows it up. Well, the goat's name is Elon, which just has me thinking sacrifice, maybe going to space and blowing up, maybe like a Challenger disaster. I don't know. I don't know the end game for Musk. It's something we should probably think about. He did say he wanted to die on Mars. Do you remember? It's at the intro to One-Eyed Jack's song, Pope Elon. He says, we're all going to die, so if you're going to die, you might as well die on Mars. Which makes no sense. It's like saying, we're all going to die, you might as well die in a ditch. Like, what does that mean, die on Mars? It sounds horrible. Living on Mars sounds like a prison. Brian Harpole, Charlie Kirk's head of security, is suing Candace Owens. Again, these are all inside jobs. It's all theatrical. I mean, if you look around the people surrounding Charlie when he was shot, one guy's doing this little movement on his arm like he's firing a weapon that was hidden under his sleeve. Other guys are doing like these hand signs, like that, was it Macarena dance? Like, what are these people doing? They're cheering, they're signaling each other. There's all kinds of weird, bizarre stuff. And they plant that stuff there. That's what I call truther bait. These are intentionally planted red herrings. And these are important for a couple of reasons. One, functionally, it creates a body of conspiracy theorists that they can control. But two, the fact that they have these subplots already planted tells you that the event itself was scripted. If the event was real, you wouldn't have had all these planted storylines already there for the conspiracy theorists to run with. A lot of the big shill channels on X right now are saying that Charlie could not have been shot by 3006. It must have been a exploding microphone. Hey, do you remember that thing? And I'm going to bring this up again. There was a ESPN host who referred to a player on a football field whose name was let me bring this up. His name wasn't Charlie Kirk. It was something else Kirk, but he called him Charlie Kirk. And at first, you could say it's just a slip of the tongue. But then when you look at the broader context, it was clearly something else, because it happened to be a game where it was a football game where the scores were like 30-6. And afterward, that player who was mistakenly identified as Charlie Kirk was Instagrammed by the team, and he was holding his neck in a very dramatic way. Okay, internet's too slow for me to look at that right now. No big deal. The slow internet issues are gone by tomorrow. Yeah, Christian Kirk. It was Christian Kirk, where he called this guy Christian Kirk, Charlie Kirk. The score was 30-06, like 30-6. The distance correlated to the distance of the pass. And then afterward, he takes a photo holding his neck in that spot. I mean, again, it's a very immersive illusion they create. And we talk about concerted messaging. And concerted messaging is what I call it when the theme, the archetype, the story is projected on every possible propaganda conduit, making it unavoidable. George Soros, in his writing about social alchemy and about creating history, he calls this reflexivity. And we're talking about the same thing. So when George Soros is talking about dialectics and making history, he's not talking about retconning or retroactively rewriting stuff or censoring. He's talking about proactively creating history. I mean, it goes over people's heads, or they couch it in language that it's vague, but I know what they're saying. Jim Marion says, Tim, I want to connect a few dots for you. Research Metatron's spiders. These are primary archonic forces that are infiltrating our reality. All the spider symbolism relates to the demon invasion. Very interesting. I'll look into that. So archons mean rulers. And in the Gnostic concept, the world is run by an architect, which is the demiurge, and the architect has its rulers. You see them in the Matrix. It's like the robots, and some of them have sort of a spidery-like form, but that could be it. Now, in the movie, the spider aliens were friendly, but it really depends. Again, aliens are represented as either being friendly, we should mate with them, they're going to give us cool tech, they're going to save us, or aliens are here to judge us. We have to fight against them. Aliens are terrifying. And again, as I pointed out earlier, the traditional views, the conspiracy theorist views, the far right, will see the aliens as threats, as demonic. The other side will have the opposite view. Aliens are a net gain for our economy. Aliens are our friends. They're just like us. And when I say at the end of the movie Project Hail Mary that he mated with the alien and had all these spider babies, I think it's in the subtext. I'm not just exaggerating. In fact, some of the euphemisms, like the spider alien keeps telling Ryan Gosling, he says, fist my bump. I mean, it's pretty obvious, the innuendo. Thank you. Mailman. Tomorrow, the Starlink dish will arrive, and then we're going to resume infinite plane radio, open phones for open minds, something I've been looking forward to for some time. And we're going to do the back-to-back callers. I'm probably going to pick up an 800 number tonight. That's why I want to say thanks to the supporters of this channel, because we're establishing the platform that's going to really just, I think, take this conversation to the level it needs to be at. We've been kind of a separatist movement for about a year or 2 years now, where we consciously decided that we need to separate from alt media because we are a separate entity. We have a separate perspective. We're not part of their controlled opposition paradigm. And we've gone far enough with that. We've established it. We have a foundation. That's what this book is for. It's establishing the foundation for a new perspective on media outside of the duopoly. So now that we're there, we can defend it. We can scale it up. And that's what we're doing now. Plain Dakota says, when you get your Starlink, do you think Musk has a mic to listen to you at all times? Yeah. I was actually thinking it's going to be a bomb. I'm going to open up my Starlink. It's just going to blow up. You know, I don't think of Musk as like a mastermind in the Psy War. He is yet another actor. I mean, it's not a small act. He's got a leading role. But I hesitate to think these individuals have any autonomy, that they're rogue. It's like reality TV. It's actually that bad. Speaking of reality TV, there was a show called Cheaters, where someone would go around and they would, this crew would go around and they would catch cheaters in the act. Well, Cheaters was staged. What's up, Diana? Thank you for joining. Appreciate the channel support, comments, and participation as always. So Cheaters was a show where it's a reality TV show. They were catching infidelity, people cheating on their spouses or their girlfriends and boyfriends. Well, it turns out that Cheaters was staged. It was all fake. And it was revealed by one of the hosts, Alex Stein, who told a lot of people that he can't tell us this because he signed an NDA, but it was all staged. Cheaters was originally started by the grandson of Clark Gables, one of the Hollywood, kings of Hollywood from decades ago. But anyway, I bring this up because Stein went from reality TV into alternative media. Went on The Blaze with Glenn Beck. He's friends with Tucker Carlson. So in other words, I think he's a plant. I think it's safe to say. And one of the reasons I say so is that he was at a college campus doing like the Charlie Kirk thing. And some students were asking questions. And one of them said, what do you think about how Charlie Kirk was far right his whole life, but then at the end of his life, he leaned left? So that's obviously a joke to how he leaned left and fell off the stool. Well, Alex Stein didn't think it was funny. He was triggered by that. Now, he's a comedian, but he didn't find that funny. But I remember for years now, every anniversary of George Floyd's death, Alex Stein makes the same joke. He's done this live at comedy events. He says, I want to congratulate George Floyd for 3 years of sobriety, 4 years of sobriety, 5 years of sobriety. And this is built on the presupposition that he overdosed on fentanyl. So why is it okay for him to mock George Floyd's death, but then his guy gets mocked and it's not okay? And the connection between George Floyd and Charlie Kirk is something I talked about the day it happened. And The Atlantic wrote a piece on it like a month later about how you have martyrs for each side in these two characters. George Floyd for the left, Charlie Kirk for the right. And there's a rationale that goes into this if you understand what each represents to the respective worldviews. But fascinatingly, October 14th was declared Charlie Kirk Day because it's his birthday. Well, guess whose birthday is also October 14th? George Floyd. That's correct. Yeah, Plain Dakota, that's another one. As far as sports go, Alejandro Kirk. That was a strange one. After the Charlie Kirk event, you had the baseball player Alejandro Kirk, where the articles are like, Kirk is a pain in the neck. And you go look, it's the baseball player, and they're dumping Gatorade on him, and it looks like it's gushing out of his neck. Or Kirk gets hit by a ball. Oh, then the last swing at the world stage, at the World Series, it's Alejandro Kirk whose bat breaks at the neck. I mean, there were so many overlapping headlines where it could equally apply to Charlie as to Alejandro. Now, you could say those are just weird coincidences, but we've documented so many of them It's weird, but it's intentional. Flatlander Montgomery says, where are they coming from? The spiders that are infiltrating our reality. Isn't there a David Bowie Spiders from Mars thing? David Bowie, the stage name of the singer, comes from, I believe, David Bowman. David Bowman is the astronaut in Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey. He comes out with Space Oddity and introduces himself as the man who fell to Earth. Sorry, my stray cat. Speaking of Odyssey, when the two astronauts got stranded on the ISS, it was because their capsule screwed up. It's called the Calypso. Well, Calypso is the name of the nymph who keeps Odysseus prisoner on her island for 7 years at the beginning of the Odyssey. So now Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey comes out in a couple of months. And I thought, Calypso, Odyssey, space, they're in outer space. Space Odyssey, what's going on here? Because Space Odyssey, if you remember, contains predictive programming for 9/11 for 2020. So it's not insignificant. It's a major Kubrick work. So the invocation of Odyssey and bringing that into the equation here is highly intriguing, considering too that after Odysseus leaves the island, he has to confront Poseidon for the rest of his way back home. Well, Poseidon is the name of the unmanned nuclear submarine that Putin has been threatening us with, that he could create a radioactive tsunami and take out a coastal city. Someone wants to see the cat? Yeah, I might. I'll bring her on camera. That cat sneaked into the house. I'm sleeping in this place. I sleep in the office. And at like 3 a.m., the cat was like trying to wake me up. And I was like, I don't have a cat. There's a cat waking me up to let her out. So she sneaks in. There's a story behind these cats, from what I understand. There was something of a situation with a cat lady who died very old. Supposedly she was I just heard rumors that she was an opera singer or something, but she had a bunch of cats. And some of these cats went stray, and then some organization came down and does this spay and neuter service for stray cats and gives them their shots and stuff. So these cats were temporarily removed and then dropped back off. And now they have the run of this neighborhood. Very low traffic, very safe. Tons of birds and lizards for them to eat. But a few people feed them. And apparently I am one of those now. So they have these places where they can dependably go to eat. I've also, the other night I was up, I saw about a dozen raccoons. I'm not sure where they come from. All right, let's see here. Cat Gwyn, Pango Cat, secondary mascot. Yeah. No, I mean, I do like cats. I just don't have the stability right now to take care of one. All right, let's continue here. We talked about Judgment Day, 35th anniversary, coming back to the theaters, and how scientists have lauded the James Cameron nuke effects as the most scientifically accurate representation of what it would really do. So we have predictive programming for the nuke coming. And the fact that it's a Christopher Nolan in the Odyssey is significant, considering Oppenheimer and Jonathan Nolan Fallout. So nuke stuff and Poseidon, it has to go together. I mean, I know there's some kind of symbolic link between space and the ocean, like the abyss. James Cameron, you have the aliens under the water. There's some strong connection here that we need to further develop. I think there's a headline now recently about the Titan crew who went down too fast and their ship imploded. And we were talking about how that was probably fake. It happened during the summer solstice when we enter Cancer, which is a crustacean. And it seems like the Titan submersible storyline tracked with the solstice, where the sun stands still. It's like this 3-day period, and we were waiting. Are they alive? Are they not alive? And then we find out. The whole thing seemed very much like a low budget hoax with their Nintendo Game Boy controller. I mean, looked very low budget, if you ask me. Lean says they're incredibly intelligent. Yeah, I agree. Like this one I noticed prefers that I leave the food in the middle of the driveway. And I think it's because she wants a 360 view. She won't put her head in a bag. She won't put her face in the bowl for very long. They're very, these ones are very hyper aware. You can tell they're stray. They're not house cats. They're not overweight, but they're always on the prowl. InfoWars, fake dead. It's fake. InfoWars isn't really being shut down. Their censorship is a psyop. In fact, Alex Jones is part of the Sandy Hook psyop. He's basically on team Robbie Parker. He's no different. And you could extend that to Jones's previous role or his history. A bunch of stray dogs. It's like 3 pit bulls. Probably hunting a baby. No, I'm kidding. There are no bad dogs or only bad owners. Nobody ever asks what the baby did to provoke it. So it can't be the dog's fault. Oh, anyway, I wanted to get to this thing. Oh, yeah, so Judgment Day. Judgment Day comes out in a couple weeks. Probably significant. Because what they're doing is they're setting the stage for future psyops all the time. And I mentioned the Overton window. So the Overton window introduced aliens, and now people are going crazy. Well, this is going to reintroduce this very dramatic depiction of Los Angeles getting nuked and people melting. Like the scene is very intense. If you recall, it's Sarah O'Connor's dream. And by the way, you have John Connor. He's the time traveler, the savior of mankind. So JC, the savior, and he's fighting against the Terminator. And the Terminator has another meaning. It's the line where day becomes night, where the darkness kills the sun. And so there's this light versus dark, like Egyptian mythology, even Christian, kind of thrown into it. Candace Owen says Erica Cook put a target on her back by saying that she accused her of killing her husband. This drama between the two is a protracted psyop. It's all fake. And I can't believe they're still hooked on it. But they did very well with this one. And it's a good example of how not all psyops can be described as false flags. Not all psyops involve people actually dying. A lot of psyops are really just stories, because what is our history but a collection of stories? But these characters need to be looked at as following scripts if they've at any time had close proximity to a psychological operation. So once a crisis actor, always a crisis actor. Anybody close to January 6th, suspect. Alex Jones has been close to psyops since Waco, which is what radicalized Timothy McVeigh, who was there. Jones actually helped rebuild the Branch Davidian church or something. So from the very beginning, that guy was controlled op. And whenever he needs attention, he just pretends like he's being censored. I've been tired. I've been tuning that whole thing out for some time once I recognized what it is. In fact, I think his position is that the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting was real. So I mentioned this yesterday, the mysterious end of scientists who worked on Reagan's Star Wars program, the Marconi murders. Was there a plot to murder Marconi scientists in the 1980s? Dead Scientist Mystery, 1987. So you can find a lot of articles about this, how a couple dozen scientists associated with Reagan's Star Wars program came to mysterious ends. Now, this is being repeated with these scientists Like, here we go. 29-year-old NASA nuclear scientist found dead. Tons of these stories are circulating right now. And then, of course, 3-body problem, alien invasion movie. Starts off with scientists disappearing. Nick Fuentes altercation footage surfaces. So this is something that I don't know what to make of it, because, Fuentes is a PSYOP actor. He was part of January 6th. He's got to be in the know about a lot of these things. But then he says, your body, our choice. So he makes this slogan to offend the feminists. And they dox him, and they begin showing up at his house at all hours, ringing his doorbell, etc. And there was some 60-year-old woman who knocks on his door, and she's recording him. He opens the door and he maces her, and then he shoves her. He got charged with assault. I think he got away with it. But I looked at the video, and she rolls down the sidewalk. Like, Nick Fuentes is not a big guy, but that shove is pretty rough, and he sends that woman rolling down. Like, he could have killed her if this is real. So I'm not sure what to make of it. I'm curious as to your opinions. Where is, like, these various characters have varying degrees of plausible deniability with regard to, do they know this event is fake? Like, it's conceivable that Fuentes is so insulated that he doesn't know Charlie Kirk is alive, even though they are competitors. Maybe he doesn't know. I find that hard to believe. But then I see something like this, and it seems more or less real. It doesn't mean she's not a stunt woman, kind of like Ashley Babbitt, with the padded backpack when she pretended like she was shot in the neck. Oh, yeah, that's another thing I was thinking of. So you have the January 6th protesters fighting for freedom, trying to, and by the way, freedom on Charlie's shirt. I think that's all a reference to Braveheart. I do think Mel Gibson directed that event and J6. But Ashley Babbitt is wrapped in the American flag. She's fighting for freedom, and she gets shot in the neck by one of the Capitol Hill police. Now, fake, yes, but I just think the symbolism of the patriot getting shot in the neck is kind of like, it's got to be connected to the bigger story. Because the story of Kirk getting shot isn't just an assassination. There's symbolism in the neck. And it ties into, even there was a show that came out last year called Americana, where someone gets shot in the neck with an arrow. So there's a deeper level of symbolism here that needs to be evaluated, and it has to do with the symbolic placement of the wound. Because when you look at all the predictive programming for the Charlie Kirk event, it's always that specific part of the neck, even in The Tempest. Or like Ryan Ralph stabbing himself in the neck. So make of that what you will. It's another facet to this thing. These are symbolic. Lean Dion said, yeah, he assaulted her. It's legit. Yeah, I mean, the question is, is that self-defense? If I was the judge, I would ask, why did you open your door if you felt threatened? It also makes him look kind of pathetic. He's a raper. It's the most contact he's ever had with a woman, not knocking him. I mean, if you want to be a 40-year-old virgin, that's your prerogative. But he espouses this idea of a white replacement theory. They're facing a genocide, and he's just not doing his part. Not that it would help, because he's not pure enough, according to his own ideology. But it's not a good look for him, shoving her like that. And again, I'm just kind of questioning, maybe he isn't that deep in the know, because I think everything is on a need-to-know basis. And you can kind of ascertain what someone would know based on their associations. Like, so he didn't go into the Capitol, but he ran up to the Capitol and told people to run in. So he's part of that PSYOP. Does he know that terrorist attacks are fake? Maybe not. It's really intriguing to kind of connect these dots, and we're going to go into detail on these various characters, and some of them are just useful propagandists who maybe don't know certain things above their pay grade, because maybe it might be detrimental to their performance to not be a true believer in it. Listen to this. During the Bush administration, key players in the federal government were urged to read the Chinese science fiction novel Three Body Problem. So the movie Three Body Problem comes from a book. It's about extraterrestrials forced out of their own unstable solar system headed for Earth. These entities systematically monitor, mess with, and sometimes kill scientists at the frontier of human ingenuity. People working on nuclear, plasma, particle accelerator physics. Critical Thinker 55 says, I live near the Brookhaven National Lab. There was a crash there, a subsequent cover-up. The military took over and cleaned up everything. Definitely a clearing where there shouldn't be one. Anyway, people have connected that. And again, it's very consistent that a popular movie would contain predictions for future news cycles. And it looks like Three Body Problem is certainly part of that, which is why I've been looking at all the various recent alien movies. And one of the common themes has been hive minds. The whole drone, the bees, the hive mind thing has been a consistent thing. And I think it ties into the notion that the presence of extraterrestrials mean that mankind must become one. And then one other thing that I kind of started talking about a few months ago is that maybe, because it's undeniable that we have collectively been subjected to generations of predictive programming for this inevitable event, this alien invasion. Why has that been a mainstay of science fiction? Why have we been constantly hit with the aliens are coming? Well, if you look at the subtext of it, or the effect of it, ultimately it's about a higher intelligence. It's about humanity facing something smarter, something more advanced, and how we have to capitulate to it, how we have to come into some kind of agreement. I used to talk about Colony, a show on Netflix, science fiction, about an alien takeover, and you never actually see them. But the aliens arrive, they take over. Season 3, episode 11, 311, they said, Seattle is the ground zero for the reboot of civilization. There's one of the first examples of 311 predictive programming for a reset, beginning in Seattle. But again, you don't see the aliens. So I got to thinking, well, what if they've been using the scenario of a takeover by a higher intelligence for many decades to prepare us to accept AI government, AI judges? Maybe the idea is, let's convince humanity that there is this new emergent intelligence that can supplant, that can replace all of these various functions and do so better. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think little green men will show up. I think it's more likely this has just been an operation to convince us to kneel before a higher power, a higher intelligence, which they will introduce to us as Grok. Grok's going to come in some final form, and we're all just going to bow down. Lean Dion says, we are all a crew, Artemis. Interesting you say that, because yeah, they did say that we are all part of a crew. And I've been talking a lot about Space Cadets recently. Space Cadets is a 10-episode reality TV show / hoax where they convinced the contestants that they were going to space. But the way they pulled this off, and this explains our media ecosystem today, the way they pulled it off, because these people weren't dumb. They were selectively chosen based upon their, I guess, willingness to be on camera, how uninhibited they were, how little they knew about actual science. So they did choose a group that they thought would be gullible. But the way they were able to pull off the hoax and convince the 5 they were in space is that they had 5 real contestants and 5 actors. And the 5 actors blended in and kept the 5 contestants from realizing that they were still in a studio. They didn't allow them to mingle, to collaborate, or form conspiracy theories out of their independent observations. Well, this is how gatekeeping operations work at the macrocosm. So this is a microcosm of our environment, where the reason why you don't have a lot of off-world stagers getting together and seeing through the false model is they're surrounded by gatekeepers, they're guardrailed by narratives, and they never integrate and compare notes. And that's what we're doing here. So you could look at the world stage as a spaceship, a bunch of space cadets, and we have left that fake spaceship because we have jumped over the guardrails. We've seen through the actors, the controlled opposition agents that are there to prevent any kind of unification of skeptics who see through the bullshit, to keep them locked in their closed system. Space cadets. If you read the wiki on it, there's a pretty good series of articles linked at the bottom. And one of them has an interview with one of the actors who says that it was easy just to pretend and believe it and convince himself it was real, so he didn't have to think about it. And it was described as an immersive illusion. That's the effect created. The immersive illusion is what we collectively live in. It's what they call in Black Mirror fictive level 1 in one of the episodes. We live in fictive level 1. We live in a hyper reality, a mix of real and fake, but it's maintained by strategically placed narratives and plants and paradigm reinforcers who are there to prevent any independent perspectives matching up with any others and then forming the right picture, which is what we've done here. Armin Reese says the interesting correlation there is that most people who gatekeep are not even in the know. They're just protectors of their own beliefs. Yeah, so I'm open to Nick Fuentes just being a paid propagandist who may not even be aware of the extent to which things are faked. I think it's compartmentalized. It's a need-to-know basis. And the compartmentalization is what characterizes the world stage. And the programmed, which is everyone, and the programmers are overlapping groups because the programmers are still mostly programmed. And this would sort of suggest it. Nick shoving that woman would suggest that, yeah, he's a programmer, but he's still mostly programmed, which is one of the reasons why I think that our position is so advantageous, is that we know more than a lot of their operatives about how the system works. Even the sellouts who are serving it may not be fully aware of how deep it goes or how fake it is. Like, there's no reason to think that your average minimum wage crisis actor fake crying at a shooting event knows about the meta script and the collusion between government and entertainment. There's no reason to think that these things are anything but based upon security clearances. You know, I say that we're run by. Anyway, we'll be in Discord today. I have a lot more to catch up on. I actually have a art show. I have a booth tomorrow at this event. It's like a 5K run. And I'm doing a series of charcoal and pencil drawings of roadrunners. I got about 20 of them at the first stage. It's actually, these are, you've never seen these before. These are water-soluble graphite. So even though it's graphite, you can use a paintbrush, or in this case, it's a water-filled paintbrush. And it works just like watercolor. So instead of shading it with a shading tool, use water. So it's kind of like a perfect blend between watercolor and pencil. So I'll be working on that. I'll be here in Discord conducting research. Tomorrow, Starlink arrives, And by tomorrow night, Infinite Plane Saturn Day, we should be back. Jamarin says, "You planning on getting back into classes this summer?" I'm not sure if I'll have time. And I'm also paying out of pocket. The reason I started school was I needed some working capital to jumpstart the IPS, specifically the internet situation and a new computer. But I managed to make that happen by stocking groceries. So, I had fun. I liked my English class. The art class was very good, and I give them all good reviews, but I don't know if I'll have time. This is my priority. This is my focus. And we're at a very critical stage. And the reason why I felt it was important to jumpstart everything is that you can see it too. You can see how the discourse is evolving to where fakery, staged events, psyops are now mainstream talking points. You got big channels talking about Butler being fake. These ideas are being floated out there, but they're doing so as a containment operation. They want to contain it because we can use that stuff as leverage to discredit their whole system, to deconstruct it. And I see that as a good sign. And I've been waiting for it. I've been saying, watch for the damage control. Watch for when the beast matrix begins hemorrhaging and how they start responding to the threats. And we're seeing a pretty unified response. It's predictable. So I'm thinking this is a perfect opportunity now to scale up what we're doing. We've purified our methodology. We have a strong foundation that we rest upon as far as the claims that we make. The model that we introduced here, the world stage model, stands up to scrutiny. News bending is real. History bending is real. PsyOps are integrated into the system in a systemic way. The entrainment between entertainment and PsyOps is documentable, irrefutable. And this has tremendous implications for people who are still stuck in their compartmentalized system. Out here, we're looking at it from a decompartmentalized point of view. And when you understand it from this perspective, you would have no incentive to go back. They've dumbed down our perception. They've given the public mind aids, so they're completely vulnerable to all of their propaganda agendas. And what we've introduced here is inoculation for their mind viruses. And I have a number of selling points for those who are still on the fence, who don't want to adopt this paradigm shift. But again, I think it's going to sell itself. I think that a lot of people are clearly tired of being mocked, ridiculed, condescended to, and dumbed down by media. And to me, this is the next level. Conspiracy theorists have always been trapped in a cul-de-sac. They've been obsessed with red herrings. They've been misled by breadcrumbs and by controlled opposition. And for the first time, we can actually unify an uncontrolled opposition to their duopoly, to their media ecosystem based on triangulation and adherence to their political horseshoe model, where you're either just run of the mill, not paying attention, or you're pushed to one extreme or the other. So this is a alternative to their alternative and to their controlled mainstream. All right, I will send out the archives. Again, if you want to join, go to ips.monster and everything is there. And we'll see you all, if not later today, tomorrow with Starlink. And I'll be sending a notice out so you're appraised of the new number. You can put it on your speed dial.